Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. I'm Alex Parra. Today, ending the month of July and starting the month of August of 2025. Another summer of soccer, as they say. A lot to talk about, by the way. We appreciate you joining us. Before we go any further, less about me, more about the people that you now see on screen alongside Alex Parra. We welcome in, first of all, in the center square. This is like the Hollywood Squares. They're bringing that back, by the way. Anyway, old stuff that's good, I guess, continues. Speaking of old, Laura Gomez, welcome to the podcast.
I knew that was going to be your segue.
How are you, Laura? I'm just kidding. Good day, good morning, good
night.
night.
I'm doing well. I hope that you guys are doing well as well. And, dealing with this Houston humidity and the nice sun, or a couple of days of good sun isn't bad.
I was doing great until I saw that jersey, but nobody's perfect. Why Colombia today?
Well, don't be jealous. The women's team is in the finals for Copa America. So it's exciting for us. I mean, it's something that we've wanted for a long time, and it's finally here, and super excited. And this is specifically for the women's jersey. So, just super proud to wear it, and hoping for the best against Brazil.
We will see. So they're an important final. Laura, it's always an honor and a pleasure for you to join us. Beside Laura, as you can tell, in the far left square or the right square, depending on how you look at it, the one and only Victor Araiza. Victor, how are you? Professor Victor Araiza III. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'll say enjoying this Houston heat. I'd rather have this than that tsunami alert that's going on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with that, but that's a new one to me.
I heard about that yesterday, the 8.8 earthquake in Far East Russia, and how that leads to a tsunami. And then this morning I was reading something about a volcano exploding. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but let's just hope that that's the end of the noise.
This might be our last podcast.
This might be the last.
Oh my gosh, Victor. Dude.
If things start shaking, don't come a knocking, right?
Please
Something
stop.
Like that. Please. A lot to talk about, friends, today, but why don't we start with maybe one of the hot topics that everybody is talking about if they have any kind of pinky toe or finger dipped into the world of soccer, and it has to do with the one and only Lionel Messi. Post All Star game, and him
that caused a tsunami.
It did. It has caused a tsunami in many ways. But I wanted your take first, Laura. We'll start with you and maybe Victor, talking about what did it mean to actually uphold the rules for Don Garber and the MLS to say, look, if you don't participate, unless you're excused or unless there's an injury, you will be suspended for one match. And clearly Miami, the team, the owner, coach, all saying the right things to defend their player. The justification, my understanding from Messi, Laura, is that the calendar is very busy. Why am I going to bother to go to Austin and hang around? Is it important to participate in the All-Star game, Laura? Is it justifiable to suspend Messi? Or do you make an exception for arguably the best player of all times?
Honestly, I've seen a lot of different sports people kind of debate this, and I saw one on like a very well-known sports channel, and there was a guy from England, if I'm not mistaken, England, and he was talking about that Messi should be forgiven for everything and anything that he does in the MLS because he has made the MLS, and he is the MLS, that nobody would know what the MLS is if it wasn't for Messi. I don't agree. I think that, yeah, the calendar might be heavy. It might be a lot of games, but honestly, the All-Stars game is, for me, it's mostly seen just like a showcase, kind of like fun. And, it's not going to be a serious thing. It's not a World Cup. It's not something huge, right? So I'm happy that the MLS upholded the rules. I mean, the rules are there for someone are there for a reason. And I think that they should be upheld no matter who you are, because if you lose those kind of bases or those kind of foundations that you have, like what kind of message is that going to give out to the next players? I mean, Messi is the best player and everybody talks about him right now, but once he retires, I mean, there's going to be other players that, might be better or might be the same or might be close to him and yada, yada, yada. So I think that it's just sad to me that I know that a lot of people have a sour taste, I think, with a lot of the things that Messi has done in the MLS. Like, yeah, we get it, dude. You're amazing. You're great. You sell tickets. You sell jerseys. You're uplifting the MLS. You're making it known. You're upgrading the team. You're making it more level. But I wouldn't downgrade what others have done prior to him to the MLS. So that's, to me, in a sort of way, kind of disrespectful just to say the MLS is Messi.
Yeah. Victor, basically starting in the same place. Did MLS handle this properly? Is this the right solution for the league, for the opponents, for the fans?
First off, I think it's a bit of a surprise because I think everybody expected MLS to come up with a reason to justify the absence, right? Don Garber had a press conference right before the MLS All Star game where he talked a little bit about the games that Inter Miami has played. But this is the second game in Texas this year now that Messi hasn't shown up to. But this one in particular, why does it matter a little bit more? Because it was almost promised, right? He was named to the All Star game. This is a league event. It's again, it's I guess contractually, or we thought it was a contractual obligation, and it didn't end up happening. And it happened before, right? With Zlatan, where they suspended him, but they've suspended other players. I think it was done more than anything to avoid the wave of criticism. You could probably convince Messi to take a night off easier than do it the other way around. And I think I would have liked to see him be at the game. I think when you go, and I know people around the world don't understand, and it's not like the All Star culture in the United States is necessarily, it's not like All-Star games have necessarily been the cream of the crop in recent years, right? I think they've all had criticism. The NBA All-Star game, the Pro Bowl in the NFL, the MLB All-Star game, which obviously just happened. They could all be bettered. It's not what it used to be. But I think, again, the league could have used him in this game for promotion more than anything, to satisfy sponsors. He's getting paid a nice chunk of change. And you know what? All he had to do was show up for 20 minutes. I get it. He didn't want to. Sergio Ramos did for Liga MX. And, maybe it's two players in two different stages of their career. But again, and we can talk about James as well. James Rodriguez, he didn't show up for Liga MX. So, but obviously the guy that everybody in that stadium paid the ticket to go see was Lionel Messi, and he didn't show up. And in that sense, it makes the league look like it can't handle its most important player, right? And it makes Messi look like maybe he doesn't really care too much about the American culture. If you go to a different country, you don't want to assimilate to certain customs. Okay. I get it's not for everybody, but he didn't.
At the end of the day, I think this is to be honest with you, maybe so calculated that it's actually brought more attention to the All-Star game, Laura and Victor. And what I say is this: everybody said the right things. Don Garber, during the All-Star break, said all the right things. We're evaluating it. We're looking at it. We understand. And the calendar is busy. We understand he is Messi. Ownership and leadership at Miami said the same thing. We protest, we defend our player. I don't think they
everybody played it the way they needed.
Exactly right. But I think everybody knowing he wouldn't be there, everybody knowing that somehow they had to play it for attention. And even here on the Soccer Tejas podcast, we're talking about the All-Star game, where in other sports, it would be players falling over themselves to participate, versus what the culture of soccer is. I think we can say safely that for Messi, Laura, him being in Austin for an All-Star game on a day off means nothing to him. So you justify it, you polish it. I think everybody played the roles right here. And at the end of the day, it doesn't change much. Might a few people in Austin feel bad that they didn't get to see him? Probably. But Laura, I think it was well played. I think we're talking about it. It talks about the All-Star game. It talks about Messi. I don't think many feathers were ruffled. It's almost like good PR by the MLS to make it not the end of the world. And certainly Messi hasn't said anything that I know publicly. And I don't think he will. He just continues doing what he does. Am I right that it was maybe too perfect, Laura?
I mean, I think that we can create a conspiracy theory out of thin air, right? Out of anything nowadays. I think it is a valid point to really think that maybe this was done on purpose. I mean, I don't know. I'm not one to fall into the Messi mania, honestly. I don't think I've ever been like starstruck and to that level, you know?
Yeah. And Laura, I don't want to say that it was intentional. I just think things aligned. And nobody's really upset is what I'm saying. Messi isn't upset. Miami isn't upset. They knew it was coming.
I mean, they wouldn't be upset. They don't really care. I think that it's more like the nonchalant kind of thing. It's more like, I don't care. I'm getting, $1 million fee. I don't care because I'm worth 20 billion. I don't know. Yo lo veo en español sangrón. I mean, if I was a fan that, I've been saving up my money, my hard-earned money, just like here when he didn't show up to the Dynamo. The thing is, this is not the first time he's done it. It's been on several occasions. Like,
but Laura,
does he have something against Texas? I mean, like, I don't want to go to Texas. Like,
it could be. A conspiracy theorist would say that. Look, I also think it has to do with the reality of a calendar that's very busy, and this is something that MLS has to address, and I think they are addressing with the thought, Laura, and I'll start with you, of eventually having a calendar that's consistent with the rest of the world. I think that's an important part of maybe where we're headed with some of this.
Yeah, and I think it's a valid point. I think players have, talked about it on several occasions about how they're not happy that, it's so full and other things are going on at the same time. I think it's valid, but I think that, again, I go back to the Messi thing. I don't know. I just feel like there's some, I don't know, just showing up for the All Stars. I mean, it was just something simple. He could have been on the field 10 minutes and that's it. And he wouldn't have had all this drama and all this backlash from a lot of people and things like that. I just, it could have been on purpose for marketing or, whatever. But I just think that, you choose your battles.
Victor, at the end of the day, do you think that the MLS All Star game increased in viewership, increased in attention, increased in trying to match what the NBA All Star game is? And by the way, all these All Star games seem to be morphing and changing. So it's not what it used to be.
I would say no. I would say no because Messi wasn't there. And I mean, that's the biggest thing. Look, if we talk about it just on the sports side of thing, I don't blame Messi. And certainly when we look at it from how anybody outside the United States would look at it, again, from the on the field standpoint, I get it. Get some rest. You got too many games, to risk getting an injury in a game like this in an exhibition. I get it. But where it does look bad, it's the league, because again, this is supposed to be a marquee event for you. I think you're right. We can connect the dots and pretty much assume they had an inkling that he wasn't going to show up, and they still let fans spend hundreds of dollars on these tickets to get into the building. And again, and I get it. It's buyer beware. We went through it here in Houston a couple of months back, and that's part of the issue here with maybe the lack of transparency from MLS. And granted, probably everybody's going to take the money and run. But I mean, again, when you talk about trying to grow your league, trying to gain a fan base, trying to, put together an all-star game, and that's your biggest star, and he doesn't show up, what does it say about the all-star game itself? I was actually thinking this was a bit of a lackluster. I know the MLS won the game, but I thought as far as like stars, names, granted, nobody's a household name like Messi, but, to have some of these stars of your league, Buwanga's probably the one bona fide star. I know Diego Luna's, up and coming. Obviously, Brad Stuber's more of a local all-star, and that's a good story there.
Yeah,
maybe also we go back to the broadcasting and the way this is all packaged and how it's presented, and maybe MLS also has a scarcity with it needs to build more stars to not depend solely on Messi. And I get it, he's a platform all on his own. But I think that's the bigger issue, that this is it's like when people complain about the NBA doesn't get their best players in the dunk contest, right? Messi wasn't there at the skills challenge, wasn't part of some of these other events, including the All Star game itself. So then, what does it really mean if your best player just shrugs it off? That's the same thing that's happened with the Pro Bowl. Best players in the NFL have decided, they're not showing up anymore, and the game has turned into flag football, and it's not what it used to be.
And you mentioned that it's not only, Victor, the game itself, and we need to talk about the validity, but the goalie wars, all the different events associated with the All-Star game.
Yeah.
You can see from the images, friends, courtesy of Apple
These aren't
TV.
goalies from the league, by the way. These are goalies from the second tier,
exactly.
the MLS Next Pro.
Exactly. Pedro Cruz, by the way, who's on the Dynamo 2 team, winning this challenge. Are we trying to pattern ourselves after the American All-Star games? And we're all American. The traditional All-Star games, Victor. And is it still relevant? I mean, you look at the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl is no longer relevant. It's now flag football. Is this just fun? And that's the way we should all look at it? And if Messi shows up or doesn't show up, it's still just fun? Is that the context we should give it here, Victor?
Look, I like this skills challenge the last couple of years. I didn't watch this one. It sort of just went out of my mind. Again, because there was really almost nobody in this All-Star skills challenge that I was that eager of seeing, and especially when, Messi's not there. James isn't there for Liga MX. And granted, that's a different story because this is the MLS's game, not Mexico's, even though they're the opponent. But I mean, so it does take away from it a little bit when it's, what's the draw here for me to watch? So we'll see the next one.
Laura, so should the All-Star game continue for the MLS? Let's not talk about other sports. The top draw didn't show. You see the skills challenge, the stadium not full, and this is the goalie wars. There were other skill challenges, of course. Is it time to rethink this? Is it time to maybe say, take a pause, get some rest? And we're going to lead into, Laura, Leagues Cup, which is, again, another competition now. In the middle of the competition, that's the league, which is supposed to be the priority, in the middle of all these other competitions. I think there's a valid point to be made here, and we see it in the U.S. Open Cup, by the way. I'm sending my second team. I'm sending my third team because it's not a priority. It doesn't take me anywhere. MLS already divorced itself from it.
Well, they changed the rules. They basically, you're an MLS team. You can't compete in more than 2 competitions in 1 year.
But still, certain teams are able to, based on their success, do that. But it was getting busy. So Laura, is it time to rethink the All-Star game? Meaning, it doesn't matter. I'd like to see the ratings. Apple will not share those. But I imagine the ratings were good? Question mark?
I mean, I've had the opportunity to cover different all-stars from different sports, and I feel like there's a combination of like entertainment and talent, and I think or excitement to see who is playing. Like, what Victor said, I like seeing the goalie challenges. I like seeing, like, in the NBA, I like seeing like the dunk challenge and like different challenges like the NFL when there's different ones. I think that it adds to like the week of the All-Stars, and I think that's important to have those different things, to have players that perhaps don't shine all the time be able to shine in that position, or have the best goalie of the best goalie and things like that. So I think it's a combination of entertainment and having fun, but also being able to showcase the best of the players that you have and wanting to win. So I think that what Victor said, it was a bummer that, James didn't show up. It doesn't matter if it was or wasn't like, their tournament, but I think it's, if you're putting your name to it, why wouldn't you want to put the biggest stars that you guys have? And then Messi not showing up kind of takes it away. So I think it has to be a combination of entertainment and fun.
Sure.
But the main course is going to want, see those talented, highly paid, highly acclaimed players.
Victor, what about the issue which you mentioned? First of all, the format, be it Liga MX All Stars. In the past, it's been different formats against different All-Star teams in different ways. But you mentioned it, injuries. Is this something that contractually you've got to be aware of? And you're right, a lot of these players showed up, played 20 minutes, trotted around the field, and sat down to protect themselves. But also, it's travel time. It's time away from your normal routine, per se. Is there a future here, Victor, where things start changing, or is this an American sports culture necessity if you want to compete in the sports business in this country?
I think it's American tradition because all the other leagues have an all-star game. So you want to have something, that you can sort of compare yourself with the other leagues and kind of offer that. And look, it might make you new fans. Again, if you get the casual fan to tune in into this kind of event, um, again, the thing here is what is it you're offering? If you're offering, stars, especially with the World Cup coming, and if some of these stars start to come over in the coming years or right after the World Cup and participate in the next All-Star game, something like that, that could really help it grow. But look, ultimately, it starts with money, right? It's inventory for the league. It's an extra game. It's to fulfill sponsorship needs. I think the timing of it can be discussed, but at the end, look, if you have it at the end of the season, you'll probably get what you get in the NFL, where players want to go on vacation, they don't want to participate. You can't really get them in there. So again, and it has a tradition. I know it's changed format over the years. Sometimes it's the European clubs and you get clobbered by them because, you're playing, a team of guys put together in a couple days against, an actual team competing in several competitions in the elite level.
Yeah.
So I like this Liga MX MLS format. But I will also, again, I said I wouldn't be opposed to East versus West. There's enough players in the league where you could probably do it. Again, maybe we're lacking stars, but looks like we're getting some back into the league. Rodrigo De Paul is now at Miami. Sounds like Tomas Muller is joining Vancouver. So, I mean, this could, again, with the right investment, this could be an event that grows the league if it's done right.
Look, the final word on this one I'll take for myself, and then we'll move on to some other international type competitions. At the end of the day, I think someone as cynical as me, an old man, this All-Star game isn't for me. I think it's for the next generation, Laura and Victor. Those 10-year-old players that now have in their mind their stars. They're looking up, and can you imagine going to a stadium where you're seeing all of these stars on the same field at the same time? That has an impact, and we can't forget about that piece of it. When I look at all-star competitions, the home run derby for Major League Baseball, it's something that has tradition, it's fun, it's light, but it also speaks of all of our heroes if you're a baseball fan. And that moment is special. The MLS All Star game isn't quite there, but I see how that can resonate with American crowds, and I think that's the priority. That in this country, that's the sports culture, and it's something that can be improved. I think, like anything else, we'll see where it takes us. I'm making a transition now to another competition, which is literally going on now, in the middle of the MLS season as well. The Leagues Cup. Victor, you were out at Shell Energy Stadium for game number 1 for the Dynamo against Tigres. We can talk about the match itself, but the competition in and of itself, Leagues Cup, is this still a sexy competition for years and years? Well, I've been talking about this for decades. Which soccer is better? Which football es mejor? Liga MX, the MLS. And this is a great way to showcase it. And the stadium, by the way, sold out. First sellout for the Dynamo this season. So, Victor, I'll let you take it away. I know you have several thoughts about Leagues Cup.
Yeah, obviously there was a local tie-in here with Tigres, but I think I was a little skeptical to see how full the stadium would be. I don't think any of us doubted that it would be a majority of Tigres fans. But the fact that and listen, there was some empty pockets in there, but they declared it a sellout, so that means all the tickets were distributed. And again, it was probably one of the best, the best atmospheres you've seen in that stadium. The closest thing I think we were talking about this off. We're trying to share notes. I guess that Miami game would have been a sellout if it wasn't overpriced. Because once Messi was announced to not be coming to Houston, the ticket sales basically stopped, right? Otherwise, I think that one would have sold out as well. But a couple of things here. Obviously, there's money involved. This, again, you just talked about in some markets it's going to be sellout, so that's that's the success of this competition. And you mentioned it. It's something that we haven't seen here this year, unless we get the false assumption that Messi might be coming to town. But on the field, I like it. And again, maybe I'm also a bit biased, right? Mexican American. So I have a tie to both leagues. I like both leagues. I like both products. I'm invested in both leagues. And I understand maybe not everybody will. And I understand maybe that US-Mexico national team rivalry sometimes might not really transition to the leagues because there's a lot of foreign players in some of these teams, or if you know, for whatever reason. But I think the product is better than, MLS itself, because I think there's a different urgency. There's a different a push. There's different tactics here. It's not just a bunch of teams that play similar, right? And sometimes look like they're out there just to play on a Wednesday night. Again, you got the local flavor of the fans here in Houston, but I think the Dynamo, take away the result, take away the loss, this is as best as they've been pushed all year. And because of the opponent, they were one forced, but two had the opportunity even to push forward, to be more attack oriented. And that's something that we're not going to see in the league. That's something that's not going to help them get better. And I've seen it over the years. Usually this part of the season for the Dynamo has been a detriment to them. This is where they go downhill. Now this tournament also gives them a break, a 1 month break, to sort of refresh and maybe retouch a couple things. And that's certainly in recent years, I think, help get them back into the playoffs.
Laura, in general terms, do you like this competition, number one? Before we get into the Dynamo performance in game number one of a minimum of 3, do you like the Leagues Cup? Is it something sexy, exciting? As Victor mentioned, for many of us fans in the Houston area, we have a tie, maybe a nostalgia about Mexican soccer and the reality of the MLS. Is this a good product for all of us? Is it a win-win-win, if you will?
I mean, I think that, like Victor said, we have different ties to it, but I think that as a Southern American, like, we know that a lot of players, a lot of Colombian players, a lot of Brazilian players use the Liga MX as like a trampoline to jump into either Europe or to Brazil or to other countries. So the Mexican league is very well followed by a lot of people around the world, because from there a lot of players have gone to other international markets. So I think it's key to a lot of countries for their players, and I think it's essential. The MLS is still playing a catch-up game. I mean, if I ask people from Southern America, most of them are going to be like, well, I really don't follow the MLS. So if perhaps they have a player that they're following in, Tigres or in another team, they might just catch this game because they wanted to follow that player and see what they were doing. So I think it also, in a sense, it helps out the marketing for the MLS. So I think it's good. And I think that for me, growing up here in Houston, the rivalry between the US League and the Mexican League has always been big. I think it's always going to be big, either when it's like the national teams playing or just, leagues. I think it's exciting and I enjoy it. I really do like to see these kind of clashes.
And if we talk, guys, about another reality, Victor, and I'm going to read the press release just so that we know the figure. 21,792, the sellout. But they weren't there to support the Houston Dynamo. And you were there physically. Can you say that the majority of fans were there supporting Tigres? And if so, that still speaks about what the draw is. And maybe that's another reality. I'm not going to spin it as good or bad. It's just a reality. Is that sad that's the only way the Dynamo can get a sellout? Is to bring in a team from Liga MX?
I don't know if it's sad. I think it's the reality. Well, it is sad. If you're a fan of the Dynamo, I think you'd like them to do some things better to get more crowds in that building. That's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, stand on their own, right?
Stand on their own, yeah. But I mean, in this case too, I mean, the passion's going to win out. Tigres fans are going to buy the majority of these tickets. We can discuss whatever the reasons might be there. But listen, I want to highlight that I think a lot of the fans in that building, whether Tigres or Dynamo, were from Houston. And again, it just highlights that there's soccer hungry fans in this city. And I don't buy into this narrative that you can't be a fan of both. I think, sure, you're not gonna have Tigres fans drop their team to become Dynamo fans,
Right.
but when they're not supporting Tigres, why can't they come out to a Dynamo game? Why can't they be won over?
I'll stop you there. I don't know why they can't, but I know that they haven't. And it's not 1 year. It's not 5 years. It's now decades, Victor, where we've had the same conundrum. That's what I can't understand. Is Houston just a weird
because
city?
they're soccer fans. They're knowledgeable soccer fans. We've discussed this, and I think that's the truth. They know the sport. They can see a team. Effort is one thing, but it's also talent. And again, look, Tigres, they got one of the most talented squads in Liga MX. Last night, they got to see Angel Correa right off a couple weeks off the plane from landing in Mexico from Atletico de Madrid and playing in the Club World Cup. And he scored his first 2 goals with the club on that night. They brought André Pierre-Gignac for a couple of these friendlies they played here as well. This might have been his last game. Again, if you're tied into that, that might be a draw for you because you don't know if you're going to get to see him play in Houston again, especially if you don't go often down, south of the border. Again, Osiel Herrera, who also scored, for some fans, Diego Lainez is a draw. Nahuel Guzman, whether you like his antics or not, it's entertaining, it's
Annoying.
It adds flavor. It adds flavor to it, more than you'd get at an MLS game, right? So again, these are all elements that are part of it, and I think if you add a product that some of these fans could, say, yeah, I'm willing to spend some of my hard-earned money to go see some of these players.
I'm sure they followed the Dynamo when they were in their winning streak. The OG Dynamos, like when they first came in and they were successful and won this, won that. I think that there was people that followed them and kind of just fell off because they were like,
yeah. But that was also a talented team. That had some of the best players in MLS, in Ching and De Rosario and Clark and Onstad. And again, I think because it's a soccer knowledgeable public, they realized that when they saw them against those Pachuca teams or any of the other Mexican teams, and that won them over. Hey, you know what? This team is worth watching. Yeah. And I think, so that's part of it. Last night, they answered there a little bit with Linger. They got the goal back. But then, again, did they do enough to get some of these fans out here? It's up to the Dynamo to follow through and, I don't know, maybe offer some courtesy tickets to some of these fans that came to these games.
Let me take it in a different direction as we wrap up the first match for the Dynamo in Leagues Cup. The word passion. I don't want to be too critical of the passion in the stadium, and I can dig into that. I did see some videos of fights in the stands. I did see some videos of people that maybe had one too many cervezas. But I also saw the supporters groups not fully 100% there. I didn't see the passion from Houston Dynamo supporters. Maybe if they were defending their pride in the midst of Tigres fans, you never wanted to get to a fight, a physical conflict with anyone. How, Victor, how, Laura, can the Dynamo have passionate fans that will come out on a Wednesday, a Sunday, whether it rains, whether it storms, whether it's sunny or cold? It just, I don't see that passion. Is that something that only comes, Laura would argue, from win, and then they'll come? Does it come from a culture? Does it come from something different? Just focusing on the passion piece. And I'll start with you, Laura. What can the Dynamo do better to have passionate fans there defending their colors? I just don't see that. I see casual fans.
No, I think that there's a certain number of fans that really do give it their all. I do know that the numbers have been dwindling down fast compared to even like a season ago or 2 seasons ago. I mean, El Batallón, I think, was one that wasn't going to the games and now came back to the game. So I think that sometimes there's a lack of connection perhaps with the club. And I think we've mentioned it many times before. So I wouldn't say that there isn't passion, but you also have to have some kind of pride as a fan, as a hardcore fan. I mean, if the Dynamo was playing in Medellin, I'm gonna give you my example of, Atlético Nacional. There would be riots because people would be asking for the president. They would be asking for like the marketing. They would be asking for everyone to be booted out because it's a culture that's used to winning, and they don't want to ever let go of that culture of winning.
Sure.
And if like 2 or 3, 4 games and they've lost, like it's like heads need to roll kind of thing. So I think that there's that culture of like, once you're, even with Tigres is used to also having a good winning streak. They might not win every, apertura or clausura, but it's also one of those competitive clubs that recycle with the other teams that are also on their top. So I think it's a culture thing. As far as the fans, I think that it's not that they don't have passion, but I think that they're like, should we go? Is there a reason to go?
Yeah.
So it's both.
Victor, I'll turn it to you, though. You know supporters groups. You know what they want and ask for. Is the organization stifling them? I've heard criticism over many years about they won't let us do this, they won't let us do that. They're micromanaging us. All we want to do is go out, have fun, and support. I've been in the midst of El Batallón and literally the frustration when they're being watched. And I guess anticipating something crossing the line. Should the organization said, let him go, let him be. We want more of this type of passion. Or the Dynamo only looking for the suburban casual fan? Or do they know who they're looking for, Victor? Am I making any sense, sir?
I hope they know who they're looking for. But I think, yeah, they certainly need to work on developing their fan base. And I don't have the correct answers and the full information on what all they need to allow them to do. But I certainly, and I've mentioned this before, they need to grow these supporters groups and help them grow. We talk about the passion. Yeah. I think with some of these signings, that's where Tigres has proved to their fan base that they're in on winning, that they're in on competing. And that's why they show that passion. Obviously, some of them would be there regardless, right? Maybe less. But I think that connection Houston has been lacking for years. And it's not just supporters. It's I mean, members of the supporters section. I'm talking about longtime supporters that have shelled thousands of dollars on season tickets and have walked away from the club because they no longer feel that passion. And again, part of it is because if the people at the club you feel don't have that passion, don't care, and I'm not saying, well, everybody's free to decipher however they want. I'm not going to say how much the owner doesn't care, but I think there's a perception that maybe he doesn't care as much.
Yeah.
And that's why you as an organization have to prove it, continually prove it to your fan base, to your city. I think what you have left, honestly, is the people that are going to be there regardless. They're going to be there regardless of who the players on the field are, regardless on who the coach is, regardless on who the front office is. They're there because they love the club that much. But that number has been dwindling over the years, and people's patience has been tested.
Agreed.
And I think that's
Yeah,
why.
but you have to earn that. You have to earn that, Victor.
Again,
that kind
exactly.
of loyalty.
That's what I'm saying. They need to.
Like,
they need to earn it back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, maybe it's not their fault they're in this hole, but they're in this hole.
They're in this hole, which I think when you look at the first Leagues Cup match versus Tigres, once again shows the potential.
And when I said maybe it's not their fault, I mean if the current people in charge feel it's not their fault, I'm saying maybe there's a lot to blame on the people prior, right? But again, you have to recognize that there is a problem and you have to address it.
Victor, I made I think a very specific choice that the organization can have. And I'm going to dig a little deeper because I think this is important. Do you go out to the suburban soccer clubs, the youth clubs, and court that crowd? Or do you go to El Batallón and say, we're going to give you 5,000 more free tickets, bring your friends and families, and have at it? Because it's a choice of a market that you're deciding on. Yes, suburban families probably don't want to have alcohol drinking people with drunk males.
That supporter section
right?
is already carved out, right?
Well, carve it out.
But,
carve another one, Victor. Instead of empty seats, give them away and get louder and rowdier. Or, that's the point. It's only 20,000 people. Let me read the number again. That's considered a sellout. 21,792 in the city of Houston, and they're not consistently coming out to support the team. That's a fact. I'll be quiet, Victor.
No, just look. I think you're set with the supporters section. You're probably capped by what you can do there. I think you got to go after everybody.
Sure.
I think you're in dire times, and if you don't think that way, then I think you're living under a rock. You have to attack on all fronts. That's the only way you're going to get out of this. And
yeah,
I'm not gonna. That's why I say continually marketing, and it doesn't have to be expensive marketing, but you do have to put more effort into it. And I think everybody has to be on board. Your players, your coaches, your front office, everybody has to be your ambassadors. If you can build those ties in the community, they're going to be your ambassadors through word of mouth and bringing out their friends and their families and etc. To games. And that's how you can build this. That's how it was built in the older days.
Yeah.
That's just
Victor, Laura, I think that we will end this portion of what the team can do better, learning from Leagues Cup, learning from the potential fans that are there. In a positive note, we do have within a year the World Cup. I believe the MLS, I believe soccer in general, at any level, need to use that event. And I'm using the words use. Whatever it takes at the youth level, at the college level, to bring awareness, to bring passion, and demonstrate that. I think if we're talking a year and a half from now, post-World Cup, and the Dynamo Dash are still in the same situation, I don't know if someone's actually paying attention and trying to learn from it. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be critical, because certainly no one's come to me and said, Alex, how would you fix this? I think all of us here have offered alternatives, which includes, like Laura mentioned, winning. Number two, like Victor has mentioned, marketing. And there are different ways to do it. But I don't know, and I hope I'm wrong, that certain people within the organization are not following a playbook from someplace else. This is a unique city and a unique market. Let's flip, if we can, Victor, a little bit to, well, can this team make it to the playoffs, the Houston Dynamo? Only a few weeks left. Your thoughts about that one, please, sir. Can Ben Olsen's team think about getting out of their current situation?
They should. 9 teams get in. I think, yeah. The system allows you to get in, so I think you have to. It might be a low bar, but it's an attainable bar, and absolutely they should be able to. Otherwise, the season's a failure.
Laura, do you concur with that? It has to be playoffs, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself. First of all, do you think the on-the-field product is good enough to be amongst the many teams that make the MLS playoffs?
I mean, it's like what Victor said. I think that there's enough spots available. But again, honestly, to me, I'd rather them not make it to the playoffs if they're going to go in and do nothing. I think for me, it's, a very low bar of saying, hey, okay, guys, you're good. Just make it to the playoffs. I think that, honestly, now at this point, I think it's disrespectful just to aim towards that. I think that they have to aim to win, because I think that they've been kind of like, saying to the fans, okay, guys, we made it to the playoffs. Look how amazing we are. Have a cookie. But I don't want the cookie. I want the freaking cake. Like, I'm tired of just saying, okay, we made it to the playoffs. I don't care. I don't care. Like, I'm telling you right now, I won't tune in, because right now I'm just covering the Dash as a reporter, but I'm not going to tune in to the Dynamo game. If they just make it to the playoffs, I don't want to go through that like last year. It's not worth my time. It's not worth me subscribing and paying extra. I'm not going to do it. So to me, it's not good enough just to make it to the playoffs.
Victor, as we look at the way this team is headed, you mentioned that it would be a failure not making it to the playoffs. I take Laura's point about the playoffs shouldn't be the goal. It should be to win championships. Reality, I think, tells us that this team, I don't think, is built for winning an MLS championship. But the question is this, Victor, is it now time to start thinking about the future leadership of the on-the-field product? And maybe we'll be one of the first to say it. Is it Pat? Is it Ben? Is it time to dream it up again? I don't have the answer. I have an opinion, but is this a critical year to define what happens next, Victor Araiza?
Well, you're already in a rebuild, whether you want to admit it or not. Once you offloaded Héctor Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla, Mikael, and you had, again, when you got to the Western Conference Finals and you didn't follow up on it, you're yourself in a rebuild. So I think whether they like it to or not, that's the way they're heading. And, again, it's all up to the owner. The owner's the one that decides if he's satisfied with the current results, if he's going to continue to give the current staff a chance to try to get out of this. I'm sure the first 2 years are probably going to play in their favor, and they're going to say, well, look, they got to the playoffs for the first couple of years, and they'll probably give them another year. But again, you can't fault your fan base or your public for saying, well, if that's the case, then I'll come back whenever y'all have another coach or another GM or better players.
Well, so let's talk about that, Victor. Earlier you said that the fans, I think it was Victor, maybe it was Laura, forgive me. It was minutes ago. I forget things, friends. That there are going to be fans that come, no matter who the players are, no matter their winning record or not. Is that enough business for Mr. Ted Siegel to say, hey, listen, don't worry about it. We're going to invest this much. My valuation is going up. That's really my priority.
Only
Publicly,
he has that answer.
Well, of course, and but here's the key, Victor. We go back to culture, Laura. You just mentioned one of the many teams in Colombia, and other parts of the world, where fans and media demand success. It's not a maybe, and it's not we're on an 8-year project to make this happen. This is one of the differences of soccer in this country. It's entertainment. The passion isn't there. No one's living and dying for this team, as far as I know. There may be a few, but because of that, there's comfort in being mediocre. Is that a fair way to say it, Laura? And what needs to change in order to put more pressure on the team to succeed?
I mean, I think that it varies in teams, honestly, because I feel like there's teams, supporters that do, ask more of the team. I'm going to give an example. That's not, it's been happening with our community in the immigration thing here. I know that it's been heavy with the ICE raids in LA. And a lot of the supporters have been turning their backs on the games and saying, we support you, but you don't support us. And that's a type of pressure as well. So I wouldn't go as far to say that in this league that, the fans or the media don't put pressure on the teams. I think that maybe perhaps here in the Houston, I don't know if it's like we're being Southern Bells and we're being too nice and not asking for more than what the team deserves. What Houston deserves, but I think that there are teams that do say this is what we need to win, like this is the kind of player that we need, and we'll be very vocal about it. I know that a lot of the supporters here have been, I'm sure they have been local, perhaps behind closed doors, and have said things on their Twitter saying, we can't support this team forever, like they don't support us, little things like that that I've seen on Twitter. So I think that there needs to be more pressure, perhaps. It's not at the level of, maybe in Colombia or in Mexico, in the front page saying, this team sucks, don't go watch them or things like that. But I think that it's just a transition. I think that, some teams do get more pressure than others.
At the end of the day, Victor, this season I think will be telling, and it will be telling depending on what happens on the field, playoffs, and hopefully beyond, and then decision making by ownership. I think it is a year to think about. Well, listen, we're stuck in the same, as you pointed out correctly. The team is already rebuilding. I guess that's going to be tolerated a little bit longer. But I think the decision or decisions that are coming from leadership, from ownership in particular, I think will be very telling of the direction. And we're going to talk about the other piece of this, the dash, here in a few minutes, about the potential future of what that franchise, where that franchise might be and where that's headed. But Victor, I'll let you have the last word on the Dynamo, and in October, November, looking to see if there are any changes, if things don't go well, if playoffs aren't reached and beyond. Is this a year where many of us will see a change if the current path continues?
I think, again, the only people that can answer this is management. Whether that's an authority that the front office has, or if it has to be the owner himself. But I think you can see the intentions of wanting to better the team, right? Obviously, maybe we got to wait for time and see, was the Hector Herrera signing a one-time deal, right? I know we're told, Ezequiel Ponce was X number of dollars, they've invested the X number of dollars in the squad, Linger, etc. But again, I think it's a different MLS, right? Where you got to show you can compete. Obviously, maybe you're not going to compete at the level that Miami is, but you have to at least field a team that could be more competitive. And absolutely, you got to ask more of your staff, your coaching staff as well. But listen, I'll say it, as much as I've been critical of Ben Olsen this season, it's not entirely his fault. That some of these players just aren't. It's gonna sound harsh, but some of these players just aren't finishers.
Yeah.
Just aren't guys that are gonna win you games. Hector Herrera had a lot of influence on some of these results the past two years as well, and I think people forget that. Maybe people overlook that, and that's why I think Jack McGlynn is not a direct replacement, because unless he's going to start upping his numbers, upping his stats, upping his assists, his goals, it's not a direct replacement.
So there you have, friends, a little bit of talk about the Houston Dynamo in the middle of Leagues Cup. And let's make a transition to the other professional team, soccer team in the city of Houston, the Houston Dash, which we cover here in the Deportes Nation. And be ready for our next broadcast. August 8th will be our next live broadcast from Shell Energy Stadium. But Laura, as the team now has gone through a rest period, similar to the Dynamo, this second half of the season, and mathematically less than half rather remaining, I think it's a pivotal, important time for the team. It's really important that they pick up wins, and that Fabrice Gautreau's team at least is headed in a better direction than last season in his first year as the head coach of the NWSL.
Yeah, I've seen improvements with the team, and it just sounds like a crutch at this point, saying that they're rebuilding. But they are rebuilding. Unfortunately, they've had a tough couple of seasons, that were out of the players' hands, honestly. And it's not an excuse. There's goals that should have been made. There's plays that should have been done, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that there has been some kind of change. At least the players are feeling more consistency of their leadership, and they've kind of gotten to know each other a little bit more. They know perhaps like the speed of their own, players and the team itself, and they know who can make this position and kind of know each other more, where the balls need to go and where, they can score. I think that they just need to really own the talent that they do have, because I do feel like there's a lot of players that have a lot of talent in this Dash team. Um, I just think really, I hope that they get everything together before time runs out, because it's not the first season that I would feel like the Dash is almost there, almost to playoffs, and they're almost getting the winning combination and they run out of time. So that's my hope. I hope that they come in refreshed, energized, and ready to make it to the playoffs.
Similar to the Dynamo, Laura, we're now using words like time running out, even though Fabrice Gautreau is in his first year. They have reshaped this team. So the reset has already taken place going into this season. On the field, and we'll talk about off the field here shortly. On the field, is that pressure there? And I'll give you my opinion shortly, but let's go to Victor. Victor, is the pressure there to produce now, to make the playoffs now? For the Houston Dash? Is it a similar situation to the Dynamo, or is this the start of the project of a new era under Fabrice Gautreau? How do you see that piece?
It's a difficult question because I think, if you're talking about media pressure, fan pressure, no, there is no pressure. I can't really speak to what's going on internally. I'm sure they're going to say they have their own internal pressure, but what does that mean? Is that to save the team from a pending sale, a potential relocation, as we've wondered? Maybe the plans are to sell the team, but to local ownership, and maybe, but again, does that even weigh on the current players, on the current coaching staff? So that's why I think it's hard to say. But I would say relatively no. I mean, is it going to be? And again, only management, only the owner has the answer. Is Gautreau and his staff, are there, jobs on the line if they don't make the playoffs? I would lean no. But unless, maybe if they're going to repeat some of the history they've done recently, maybe they are. Maybe they are on the line, but I would say I don't think so.
I don't think the fire is as warm, hot, lit as strongly, if I'm making any sense, friends, under the Dash as it is under the Dynamo on the field. And Victor, you jumped way ahead because you're so much smarter than I am about another impending potential major change to the Houston Dash. Ted Siegel, in one of his last media availabilities, did mention that the team was for sale, that they are looking at offers. They are contemplating that. And since this happened several months ago, there's been very little noise about it. And I imagine that the process continues. And I imagine that this may be a pivotal season, winning or losing, for the real future of the franchise. Two quick points, Laura, and then I'll turn to you on what this may mean. I think number one, speaking of sellouts, we're not consistently filling the Shell Energy Stadium to support the Dash. There is now also competition in the state of Texas, the Dallas Trinity, that play at the Cotton Bowl. Again, very difficult to get a sellout there just because of the sheer size of that stadium. But I'm hearing a lot of positive buzz about the Dallas Trinity in that market, even though potentially they should be playing in a different stadium, probably in the suburbs. But I'm seeing that the USL product, also a first division, by the way, to me, this is a direct competition. And when people start comparing apples to apples and seeing contracts and other things, I see a lot more energy after year one of the Trinity than I do from the Dash. Arguably still the Dash, playing in the NWSL, arguably still one of the top leagues in the world, but that may be changing. So that's pressure, not only on the Dash, but on the NWSL. And Texas is a hotbed for youth soccer, for college soccer, for high school soccer, and young players young ladies, women are seeing that there are more pathways, not as before where there was only one professional team in the state at that level. So that's, I think, point number one, Laura, the competition, the environment. Second, if the ownership is actively looking for a sale, what does that mean about the commitment? We talked about passion. We talked about leading. If this is a financial decision, Laura, how many club owners in different parts of the world own their team because of passion first, not because of their wallets? Is that a legitimate argument here, which is, you know what? I'm in it, and I'm not pretending to be Ted Siegel. I'm in it for the financial piece. There's nothing wrong with that. Perfectly legitimate. But I'm not here for the passion to support it, whether I'm losing millions of dollars every year. 2 points, Laura. I almost called you Norma. I almost insulted you. 2 points, Laura, that you can decide, choose to piggyback off or go in your own direction. But those are my thoughts as we go into the second half of the season here for the Dash.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, Dallas Trinity can be a very dangerous, competitive name here in Texas. Once they start getting more footing and start letting people know that they're also another, first division, I think right now the NWSL does have the upper hand of people trusting and knowing that they are, and, just having big names that have, kind of always been associated to the NWSL. As far as the Ted Siegel thing, I had the opportunity to interview him when he bought out both teams, and I kind of asked him, like, what's the passion of you in women's soccer? And
Right.
he said to me, oh, I have 2 daughters that play soccer. And I was like, okay, cool. And that was it. So honestly, I wish I could buy the team. Honestly, if I had the money, I would buy the team. But my next best bet would be for a woman to buy the team. I really want to see Megan Thee Stallion, Beyonce, whoever here in Texas
But
has
Laura,
love and has love for Houston and women's soccer. I think that they should be the ones.
Laura, I'll hit you with a dose of Alex Parra reality from a perspective from an old man. Passion is one thing, but you also have to run this as a business. This is entertainment. Here I do agree with the business notion, Laura, which is, look, I'm investing 20, 30, 40 million dollars. Someone will have to help me with the current valuation of an NWSL team in this market. That we won't talk about the attendance, and say, okay, if I pony up $30 million and then I invest more in signing players and I'm in it for 5 to 10 years, am I going to get that money back? The question is, Laura, if you had the 30 million, is that where your money goes? Maybe you do have that passion. I know you would, because you love the sport. But who's sitting around with 30 million or 40 million? And rumors have it that some other professional teams in town may have that, and they can run it in a different way. It's just because it becomes intriguing, Laura. 2 things: the amount of money that would be spent, and then how do you separate the gemelos? How do you separate the twins, Dynamo and Dash, that are currently under one roof? Literally, same stadium, same management structure. And if you were to sell one piece, do they go to a different stadium? Is it a different management structure? There's so many questions.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because it's revenue. You don't got to manage a team, and now you're renting out your own building. Of course, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of inkling to, I think, because there has to be offers. And I know we've heard of at least one, but there has to be more offers, especially with the expansion in this league, to try to relocate this team to another market.
Okay, so
I would think it interests if Siegel's going to sell it, it interests him to have it be local ownership, so he can rent out the stadium and make at least money off of the rent.
Victor, we have a history of that same arrangement with Les Alexander when he owned the Rockets and the Comets. Laura, I don't have to tell you where that ended up. Yeah, go ahead. Here, I'll rent it out to you because I own it. I'm in control. That didn't last very long. And that Comets ended up playing at the Astro Arena. They ended up playing in some high school gym. Victor, it has to be someone that has probably equal or more investment than Ted Siegel for it to fly. Now, you mentioned the hard question, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, Laura, and I don't want to depress you tonight, but maybe there is a play here. We talked about the great state of Texas. Someone say, I'll buy the franchise, but I'm not going to stay in Houston where you're averaging 4,733 fans. I'm going to take that to Austin, to San Antonio, or elsewhere. That would be a blow for soccer in our city. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's a possibility, Laura.
I mean, I didn't finish like my last thought. I
Sorry,
think that
Victor
if Ted
interrupted
Siegel,
us.
obviously obviously he knew the numbers coming into this business. And as a business person, you should know, Alex, that, for several, depending on the business, you have to be ready to set up to lose for at least the first year or year and a half before you're really, above the red line or breaking even. So that for me is something that you already know. The other thing for me is, making little changes like hiring, Jessica O'Neill and others. That was a good, positive thing. But other than that, what have you really done that the other administration didn't do, that the owners really didn't do? I mean, what are the big names? Maria Sanchez, and what she lasted less than a year, I want to say. What else have you done? Diana Ordonez was another big one that they sold to us. She's gone. I mean, I can name you 2, 3 players right now that I think that are not going to make it to the next season if things don't change rapidly here at the Dash, unfortunately. So, for me, it's not an excuse of saying, oh, well, I didn't know this team wasn't going to make this money. No, you knew. You knew from the get-go. You knew the numbers. You have access to all that. I don't have access to all that, and I can tell you right now what the numbers were, the past 3 seasons. So I think that the person that buys this team, I hope and wish that it's someone that loves women's sport. I hope it's someone that
someone
loves
that's
Houston. I hope
competitive,
it's someone that
somebody
loves
wants
Texas.
to win.
Yeah, I know, but I've seen a lot of women recently, buy teams here like it's nothing, buy here and there, and I really want them to have that passion. If they're not from Houston, at least have that passion that they want to see this team really succeed. I mean, we've seen it with Eva Longoria buying, the Mexican Liga MX, and I don't know if they're doing it just for show, but they've invested in it. They're doing marketing. They're getting cameras on them. We've seen it with that other actor in that team in England, I think England or Ireland.
With Wrexham, and they're doing a documentary here with Necaxa also. But and that's a different deal, right? Because it's a lot of investors. It's an investment group. It's kind of what LAFC and Angel City have, where as opposed to where you're just doing it here on your own. But it's also, again, I think you got to be a bit more competitive. And I don't know how much it plays, the potential sale. Because again, if I'm a fan of the team and I'm looking at the current product, maybe I'm asking myself, because we saw it with the Astros when Drayden McClain was trying to force a sale, right? There wasn't a lot of investment in the team. It was just kind of the bare minimum, if you call it that. What if they didn't get a more experienced coach, maybe more proven coach? Because he'd be more expensive, and that's why no disrespect to Fabrice Gautreau, but maybe that was a reason why they went and got him. The players on the field, do we have enough bona fide talent? And even when they had Maria Sanchez and they announced, because I'm going at the contract specifically, when they announced it being an important contract, right? One of the highest paid players in the NWSL.
At the time,
she was still getting paid the equivalent of a mediocre MLS player, of like a lower end Dynamo player. I mean, that's not a lot of investment. So, I mean, if you want to get the best women's players, you want to bring them here, you want to put a team that could compete, I think it'd be easier to do than with the men's league.
It appears, Laura and Victor, that a change may be coming to the Dash, and my hope, and like you said, Victor, is that if there are new owners, new ownership group individuals, that, as you've mentioned, Laura, that it's someone with passion, someone with resources, someone with commitment, not for a year or two, but for a decade. I think that has to be the plan. I would love someone that is so into this that say, you know what? Thank you, Mr. Ted Siegel, but I'm going to build my own stadium. Thank you, Mr. Ted Siegel, but I have my own training facility. Thank you, Mr. Ted Siegel, but I'm bringing in my own resources. I believe it has to be better than it currently is to ignite a fire under fans, to ignite a fire at the many levels of competition within the NWSL, outside now with the USL Super League and beyond. I still see it as an opportunity at the end of the day for someone, and maybe change is necessary. I think the team is currently stuck in a situation that needs some reassessment and recommitment. Laura, I'll let you have the last word on the Dash's future, please.
And hopefully, I just, it breaks my heart to even think about it. Like, it really does. It breaks my heart to think that they're going to take another women's team away here in Houston. Like, I could cry on camera, to be honest, because
you've been
going
very passionate
through what
about
happened.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, going through, and I was young, going through the changes, that the disrespect that they did to the Comets.
Yeah.
And it was a team that, had so many great players, had so much potential. They won championships.
Yeah.
And to see what they did to them, it's gut wrenching, honestly. And to think that the Dash would be taken away. The only professional women's soccer right now, I guess, in the NWSL besides Trinity, the Dash is just, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it because I can't imagine all the little girls that are so passionate, little boys, and us being passionate about women's sport, not being able to say, hey, let's, cover this game, or we're calling this game, or, my family is watching this game, or seeing the little girls that their eyes just light up whenever, they have their favorite player come and sign their jersey.
Yeah.
Not to have that kind of opportunity here, to see all the rest of the NWSL players come to our city and see the talent and how women's soccer is growing. I don't even want to think about it.
I don't want to think about it. I'm hoping that in conversations like this, the powers that be realize the potential. I'm like you, Laura. If I also had the investment, I would bet on the future of women's sports and women's soccer in the city of Houston. I think it has great potential, but we will see. As we wrap up, friends, our latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast, Laura, I wanted to turn to you about something that's actually very positive for our community. It's going on now, I believe in its second year. Genuine Cup taking place at Rice. It's an amazing opportunity, talking about passion, talking about what good the sport can do in bringing us together. The Genuine Cup is an outlet, an international tournament for helping so many men and women, boys and girls with disabilities. And it's something, you talk about gut-wrenching, we should do more of this in helping out our community, and certainly through soccer. Genuine Cup 2025. Talk to us a little bit about this, please.
Yeah, Alex, it's a cup that's been, the first year it took place was last year, and they had about 12 teams. Now they have over 30 teams, and it's teams that gather around the world, and they're at Rice University. It's going on right now, like you mentioned, the Genuine World Cup, and it's honestly one of a kind. It's a tournament dedicated to celebrating athletes and intellectuals with intellectual and development disparities. So what I love about it is that it's not only a cup, and there's different teams. There's the Dynamo, there's Miami FC, if I'm not mistaken, Barcelona, and a whole other ones from different countries. And not only is it just tournaments, but also they have the opportunity to see different things from Houston. So I think they took them to an Astros game. They took him to NASA. So it's like the opportunity to really, not only are they playing soccer, but they're also seeing other people with the abilities that they have. And they get to know each other and kind of create that kind of bond, which also helps them as individuals, honestly, to grow and feel better about themselves and self-esteem, and to say, there's nothing wrong with me. I just have different abilities than others. And one of the things that I love, just like you love, how I love is soccer. So I think, like their logo says, it's more than just a cup. It really is.
It's an amazing competition. I'm hoping, Laura, and we were talking a little bit off air, to get down there for the, I guess, finals or competition finals on the 1st of August. That's only in a couple of days. Victor, we should have more programs like this. Talk about support. Talk about the good it does for the players, for the organizers. It makes us, I think, all feel better. Sometimes we get so carried away about the business side and the winning and losing. Everybody wins, I think, when you support a program, a project like this.
Hold on,
Absolutely.
before Victor
Yeah.
talks. I do want to say that the Dynamo is not one of the teams actually that is involved. It's just Miami FC and Tigres and Querétaro and more teams from Liga MX, and also Atlanta from the MLS. But curious to see that the Dynamo is not involved, and I am sure last year they were. So
maybe that's a story
now you
to
can talk,
follow.
Victor.
Now we turn to Victor Araiza. Victor, it's all yours, sir.
Well, I was gonna, sort of throw the Dynamo in here with the, MLS does, their own unified league, and I think we had a feature on it with our good friend Eddie Robinson's part of that now. At one of our dash games, I think we highlighted that. So great causes. Again, the more attention to these kind of projects, the more the merrier.
Not only the more the merrier, Victor, but I think in general terms, it makes us all feel like part of a community. And like Laura said, I by the way, the highlights I'm looking at, they certainly play better than Alex Parra. So I would have a tough time getting on those teams. So congratulations to them, to the organizers. And we'll try to bring you a little bit more information, friends, about the Genuine Cup. Speaking of time,
go to our website. Go to our website if you want to see more information.
Great story by Laura Gomez. Let's wrap up today's latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. And we normally end, and let's do that again, with what's on our minds. So I'll turn to you, Victor, first on what's on your mind this week.
Obviously, if we're sticking to soccer, Leagues Cup, there's plenty of that going around, and there's some intriguing matchups here. And obviously, we'll have a couple more games here in town, including America coming in. So it'll be interesting to see what that attendance is, because there's no Dynamo tying in now, and it's against Minnesota United. Off the field, it did catch me by surprise, this whole earthquake thing on the coast of Russia with this tsunami alert. And I were kind of just, it sounds far-fetched. That's why I think we were kind of just batting around at the beginning. But prayers out to everybody on the West Coast. Hopefully it's just kind of a false alarm.
Yeah, a very strange situation, Victor, there. But, hopefully we're united by all the positive things. But often these kind of situations also unite us. And let's be supportive. Hopefully nothing catastrophic. Laura, what's on your mind as we close out the podcast today?
Well, as I always say, soccer's in my mind, and more specifically women's soccer. A shout out to Michelle Alozie, that lifted a cup with the Nigerian team at the WAFCON finals. Amazing game. She was a key player, and the game that got them to the finals, scoring at the last minute. So congratulations. It just really shows the talent that we have here in the Houston Dash. And then also, like, where's my right here? Colombia's playing against Brazil August the 2nd for the Copa America. Against Brazil. Marta, I love you, but I hope you lose. I think it's time for Colombia to be able to get some of that winning juju on them. Brazil has had a lot. So now let the chicas superpoderosas, how they call them, to be able to lift that cup. And I think that, again, Marta and the Brazilian women have done an amazing job, as well as the Colombian women, to really speak out in the injustices and the inequalities that they're still facing at this time for women's soccer, specifically for this cup. So hopefully the men, because most of them that are in charge, unfortunately, are men, get their stuff together and give these women what they really deserve. So
we
that's
hope
on my
so.
mind.
That's great to have on your mind. On my mind, friends, is the end of summer in many ways. You mentioned natural disasters, Victor. As you know, we're going into hurricane season, but maybe I won't talk about that. But I will talk about.
No, Alex. Look, I'm already stressed out. Leave me alone.
All right, we won't talk about that one, but I will talk about summer. What summer means for a lot of soccer programs. I'm starting to see, and we'll have some reporting on the Portes Nation on college teams, both men and women's programs starting to report and getting ready for the start of their seasons. And it's an exciting time. It's also a challenging time in college sports in general, with the changes of NIL, the changes in general of what this business has become. But I'm also excited for the many incoming freshmen, which would be freshmen and women, who are excited about joining a program at whatever level, whether it's D1 or whether it's a junior college or whether it's at a club team at a university. The excitement of that, the preparation for that is great. And very soon also high schools will be coming back to school. Yeah, kids get ready. Friends that have kids are ready to have the kids go back. But I also caution in the sense of, please be careful out there. It's hot. Clubs are also going back to training. We at SG1 will be going back next week to full training. So let's do it gradually. Let's be smart about how we do it, adapt to the weather. But it's an exciting time that now gets us ready for the fall. So that's on my mind, getting kids, boys and girls, men and women prepared to their season. And as I reflect back, this was an exciting time to get in shape, to look forward to another season and competing. So it's a really great time for many of us, and also supporters, friends, family, be there to support and make this a special time for your soccer player. And I think you will all benefit here soon. And by the way, if you train in the Houston heat and humidity, you can play almost anywhere, number one. And when that first cold front comes through, whenever that is, or cool front, you're in great shape the rest of the way. So that's what's on the mind of this old man today. So last word as we wrap up, and Laura, I'll give you first, and I'll turn to you first, rather, and then I'll turn to Victor. Last word tonight, Laura, please.
Don't take the dash away, please. Please. I need them here in Houston. Okay, that was it.
That was her plea. I like that. Victor, what do you want to say adios with?
I'll follow up on that. Maybe it's time to get a Save the Dash movement going. So, yeah, Save the Dash.
I like that. Let's save our dash. You know, there may be some energy behind that. I think if we each pool some money, we'll have, what, $30, $40 if Mr. Ted Siegel wants to take that offer.
Probably 15 with what you pay me.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Anyway, friends, we really want to thank you for being part of this. Before we go, thanks to Victor, thanks to Laura, thanks to our production team. Grant doing a great job today with video and other things, and the rest of our PTS media crew. Please follow us on the Portes Nation, follow us on Soccer Tejas, follow us on the individual social media platforms that we have for Victor Araiza, for Laura Gomez, and also participate. Ask us questions. Let us know what you want to hear from us as we put together this Soccer Tejas podcast. So on behalf of Victor, on behalf of Laura, I'm Alex Parra. Thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us on what we call the Soccer Tejas podcast. Until next time, take care.